If you were a child of the 80s, you probably enjoyed spending hours at the arcade like me. I don't want to pay any more quarters for the arcade, so I made my own, and I'm going to show you how to wire up your own arcade so you have one in your house. Okay, this is a video redemption game, or it was. Usually it's like a legalized version of gambling. You might see like a slot machine or video poker. But this guy was headed for the dump. And there's nothing left in him. There's no monitor. There's no game board. Nothing. But we're going to take him and we're going to turn it into our own multicade with about 60 different classic arcade games. You can see the buttons are like rectangles, but underneath they're just circles like any other button. So that's not going to be a problem to adjust. There's a lot of stuff going on in this panel, way too much stuff. What I'm probably going to do is just replace the whole panel, but we're not going to go over all of that in this video. We're just going to do the wiring. One good thing about this cabinet that it does have is it still has a switching power supply, and that's really good for us because that's one less thing we have to do. It also has the transformer up in the left hand corner. That was for the CRT monitor, and it's not bothering anybody, so we're just going to leave it there. Somebody may want to put a CRT back in this machine. Instead of a CRT monitor, we're just going to use a regular LCD monitor like you would use for your computer. This is just a Dell monitor, and I pulled all the plastic casing off. It's not needed. You can see it's got the power on the right and the VGA plug on the left, but it's just your standard LCD monitor. You'll notice on the back there's 4 places for you to put screws, so you can normally mount it to a wall, but we're going to mount it to a board to put into our machine. The next thing you'll need is the game board, obviously, and you'll also need what's called a JAMA harness. What this is it's just the plug that goes onto the board with a large amount of wires that allow you to plug in to your buttons and everything that's for your peripheral devices. This particular board and harness I got from Paradise Arcade. They're based out of Hawaii. I didn't really care for their quality. Next time I think I'll just stick with jamaarcade.net. They have some better quality stuff. This guy will work fine though. You can see it's got a VGA plug there on the middle, and then on the left that's a 3.5mm audio port. So you can plug it in that way. Also on the JAMA harness you'll see a plug for the other kind of monitor like CRT monitor, and you'll see have wires for a regular speaker. Now your game board is going to come with a user manual, and in that user manual you're going to find the map, and it's a pinout map, and it tells you what wire goes to what to control which button. Unfortunately, the JAMA harness I got from Paradise came in Japanese, but that's okay, we can still count. What we're going to start with is I'm going to find my +5 voltage. So that's going to give me an idea. It starts at pin 3, and I'm just going to count over and line up each pin number with what that pin does. And you'll see there's 2 columns, and what that means is one's on a solder side and one's on a non-solder side. And the solder side is the side with all those little silver dots where you can't really see anything, and the non-solder side is where all you sell your components. Since our switching power supply already has a 9-pin Molex connector on it, we're going to modify our JAMA harness just a little bit so we can accommodate that. We have a 12-volt yellow wire, and that's going to power our amplifier for our speaker. We've got a red wire, which is 5-volt, which powers our actual board, and then we've got a black ground wire. We're going to put Molex on all those. If you're not familiar with a Molex pin, this is what it looks like. It's just a little tiny piece of metal. You have a male and a female, and all you're going to do is you're going to strip the wire, and you're going to use a special pair of Molex crimpers to crimp that metal piece onto the wire. And then you're going to stick it into this plastic piece, and that's going to make your whole plug. Even though we only have 3 wires and 9 places to put them, that's okay. We're going to leave those other places open for other things. So if we want to modify it with lights and the buttons or anything else like that, we have an extra place to plug in for power to do those kinds of things. Now that we've done our prep work, we can start putting it together. I mounted my monitor to a board, and I mounted the board to the cabinet. Just simple plywood, nothing fancy. I've already pulled out the old buttons, and now I'm going to put in the new buttons. It's really simple. You just poke it through, you screw on this nut, and tighten it down. The joystick is just a little more complicated. You just have to pull off this E-clip with a little screwdriver. Once you pry it off, then the stick part of the joystick will come out. Then you can just stick the stick through the top of your panel and then screw down the bottom. Ready to go. You can see there are 4 micro switches around the stick. That's your up, down, left, right, which is going to be opposite from the bottom. In other words, when you're looking at it from the bottom, up is down is up, and left is right, and right is left. Once everything is screwed in, you can stick your micro switches back into your switches. These have light bulbs for an option to light up. And they also have the micro switch is going to press on that little button right there. And that's how your button works. They just snap right in. Once you get everything screwed into place, you're going to just hook up your wires. And it's really simple. Your black ground always goes on that very bottom one. And then your power goes on the one that's right below it. Not on the one at the very top of the button, because that's not going to do anything but keep the button on. So the black on the bottom right there where it's kind of bent underneath, and then the power right next to the one after that. Once you have everything wired up, then you can move on to the next thing, like the monitor. Just plug it in and you're ready to go, just like a normal computer. Next, you're going to plug in your board. You're just going to match up the 5 with the 5 on your plug. So you can see that that's where your 5-volt goes. Then you're going to grab your VGA plug and plug that in. You also notice a set of dip switches right there, just 4 of them. You're going to want to switch number 2 to on for VGA. Next, you're going to want to wire up your speaker. The plugs were too big for my speaker to just plug them on in, so I just did a quick solder on these. You can also use computer speakers, which just plug directly into a 3.5mm jack that's on the board. But if you do that, make sure that your computer speakers are powered, because they're going to need an amplifier to make it work. Now you're ready to plug in your power with that handy-dandy Molex connector we made earlier. And the good thing about this particular power supply is it happened to have a regular plug outlet already part of it, so I can plug in the monitor really easily. Now that everything's plugged in and ready to go, all you have to do is mount the board with some mounting feet that come with the board. Just screw them into the side wall, and then you're going to have a whole bunch of extra wires that you didn't use. You can either cut them off or tie them up and put them out of the way. The wires you did use, make sure you make them all nice and straight and even, and then tie them up with some zip ties so that you don't have a spaghetti mess. And nobody wants to see that. That's it. You're all hooked up and you're ready to go. This guy has an on-screen programming, so you just flip over another one of those little dip switches, and what it does is it goes into all your setup, and you can actually set up each game. So if you want 5 Miss Pac-Man lives, you can do that. If you want to speed her up, you can do that too. Now that everybody's ready to go, you'll see you've got this very simple interface with all 60 of your games going. So have fun.